Hi, how's it going? I saw this card design online and thought I'd have a go at making it myself. And I thought I'd make a video of the process. I didn't do a test run beforehand, so I was kind of hoping that it would turn out okay, and I think the result is pretty cool actually. I've been interested in making interactive cards for quite some time now, and I absolutely love this design. The centerpiece spins around, and although it looked quite complicated to start off with, it actually wasn't once I got into it. So without further ado, let's get stuck into the video. I do apologise for the poor quality of this video. I wasn't really well prepared for this, and it was late at night, so I just couldn't quite get enough light on my work surface, so I hope that it's not too unbearable for you. I'm starting this card by colouring in the background. So I wanted a wave effect, and to do that I've just got some scrap paper and I'm cutting it into wave shapes. I will generally do a couple of these, 2 or 3 different pieces to get closer or bigger waves, just to kind of mix it up a bit, and then I'll go ahead and ink that. I find the key here is to make sure you cut it nice and smooth and don't have any little jagged edges, because they will show up a little bit when you're using it. If you have like some scrap acetate or plastic packaging, a good tip is to cut some out of that, and then you can reuse it multiple times because then it's super strong. You're essentially making your own stencil then. It can just be used multiple times over and over. Now that the stencils are done, I'm going to colour in the background using Distress Oxide ink. The colour I'm using is called Salty Ocean. I wasn't planning on going this dark with the blue, but unfortunately I'd put a bit too much ink on my blending tool and that did not help the situation, but I thought, what the heck, go with it anyway and just see how it turns out. So I grabbed the wave pieces that I cut out of the scrap paper earlier and laid them on top of the card. I started on the edge of the stencil and pushed the ink onto the paper, just very, very lightly. Once I've blended the first line of waves across the top, I'll then shift my stencil down and keep blending again, starting on the stencil and blending the colour up onto the card, just in light circular motions. Skipping forwards now to the next part, I've already pre-cut this plastic ring. Now this is just from some leftover packaging that I had, a bit of flat plastic packaging, and I've used 2 circle dies to cut this ring. This ring is what all the pieces are going to rotate on. I'm now going to use the same 2 circle dies that I used to cut a hole in the front of this card. I like using the magnetic platform with my Big Shot. It makes it a lot easier to do my die cutting, as they'll stay in place a bit easier and won't slide around so much. If you don't have one of these, there is some low tack masking tape also works well. The next step I'm going to do now is stamp the images for the front of the card. The stamps that I'm using are from My Favourite Things, and the set is called Mermazing. I really love this set. It's super cute. It has some really nice ocean themed pictures which you can use to decorate backgrounds, It also has 3 mermaids in different poses, so you can position them on different places of your card and they just work really well together. It also has some great matching sentiments to go with it. It has "We're mermaid for each other," "You are mermazing," "Sending oceans of love," and "I need to see you soon." So they coordinate really, really nicely with the pictures. And it's just a really fun one to use, and I love to use bright colours on it. There's just so much you can do with it. I'm using a stamping jig from Stampin' Up called the Stamparatus. If you don't have one of these tools, you can just use normal acrylic stamping blocks, but I find it really easy to just use this tool, as I can stamp all the images at once, and if they don't quite turn out okay, I can restamp them really easily without having to redo the entire thing. If you're unfamiliar with these kinds of stamping tools, I really recommend that you check out some other videos on these products, because they really are a really useful tool to have in your craft room. I've used Memento Tuxedo Black ink here to stamp the images. When you are going to colour in images, you need to consider what ink you're going to stamp them with, because if you're going to, say, colour them in with alcohol markers, sometimes the ink can bleed when you colour in over the top of the stamped image. So yeah, you just have to think about that beforehand, especially if you're using watercolours and alcohol markers. I will be using alcohol markers to colour in my pictures. I have a favourite brand of markers called Chameleon markers. I really like them because you can do multiple shading with one pen, and if you have the colour toppers, you can do like gradient colour changes, which goes really, really nicely with the mermaids, because you can do the tail of the mermaid in like 2 different colours, and it looks really, really pretty. I also have a cheap set of markers which I got from Aldi, and I actually think that the colours are pretty good and they're really easy to use. They don't have as many colours in them for blending together, but if you're just colouring in individual pieces, they work really great. For these pictures, I'm going to use a combination of both the Chameleon markers and my cheap Aldi markers, especially the skin colour one from the Aldi set, because this Chameleon set of pens that I have, I don't particularly like the skin colour pens in it. I only have the smaller set. Since I bought this set a few years ago, they've actually brought out a much bigger set, which has some nicer coloured skin tone pens in there. I can buy them individually, but I just haven't got around to it yet, and I don't mind the Aldi skin colour. Now I'm using one of the Chameleon colour toppers to change the colour of the pen. So it's going to go from a pink colour and then blend into a red. I thought that would be really fun for the hair, to make it 2 different colour tones. It makes it just super easy to blend the 2 colours this way, rather than using a whole heap of different pens and slowly shading different colours like you would with Copic markers. The pen has 2 different nibs on it. It has a fine brush tip marker at one end and then a bullet nib tip at the other, which gives you a couple of different options for colouring in. I will be cutting out the rest of this colouring in very shortly, because I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch me colouring in. The next part of the video I did take the following day, so it is a little bit better quality. And I've also moved my camera to the other side of the desk, so my left hand is not blocking the camera. I'd already done most of the colouring the night before, so I just had a couple more pictures left to colour. From this angle, you can better see the colour changing top that I'm using on the pen. I'm going from a like a hot pink color to an orange. I've lost a little bit of video footage here, but what you've missed is I positioned how I wanted to lay out my pictures for the front, and I've used this product called Press and Seal to stick them all together, which you'll see a little bit later. I'll use it again. I've already placed some glue and a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of these pictures, and I'm just using the Press and Seal to hold it all together, and because it's clear I can see exactly where it's gonna sit, and I can just adjust it, get it how I want it, press it down, and it's exactly where I want it to be. Now I just carefully peel back that plastic film and I'm ready to stick on the next lot of pictures. So now we have the centerpiece for my card done. What I really needed to do now was to make the base of the card itself. So I've just got some plain white cardstock and I'm just going to cut it a little bit bigger than the top piece of the card, and then I will score it with my bone folder. Now this is the exciting part where I actually start to assemble the card. I'm going to tape down the outer part of the card first using some thick double-sided foam tape. It's really important to not get it too close to the edge of the circle, otherwise the slider is going to get caught. I'm actually not using any particular craft brand of double-sided foam tape anymore. I've actually just been going down to my local Bunnings and picking out the cheapest roll of foam tape, and it's actually super sticky and it does a fantastic job and it's quite cheap, so I think it's great. Once I've got all that release paper off the back, it's ready to stick together, and I've actually already put some foam tape on the back of the centerpiece as well, so it's ready to stick down as well. Once the raised outer piece is stuck down, I then place that plastic ring that I've made inside the track and then put the centerpiece in, which is also raised up with foam, so the plastic ring is sitting lower than the two blue pieces sitting up on top. Before I permanently stick that centerpiece, I just want to check that that ring is not getting caught on any of my foam tape, otherwise I can poke it in or chop some bits off just to make sure that it's right before I stick it together. Very carefully now, I place that centerpiece in, just watching that it doesn't stick to my plastic slider ring. I'll make one last check to make sure that that plastic ring isn't getting caught on any of that foam tape before going any further. I've got 4 turtles and 4 clownfish that are going to spin around the mermaid. Now I'm just going to lay them all down first to make sure that I get the spacing correct before adding the foam tape. And I'm actually going to put 2 layers of foam tape so that they sit up higher than the rest of the card. Otherwise I think that they would get caught on the mermaid a little bit as it sort of sticks out on the edge of the paper a little bit, so I just wanted it to be that little bit higher. I've been really careful to cut the foam not too big, otherwise it will actually grab as it spins around, so you just got to make sure that it's not too big. And I've had to use some tweezers to put it in position as it's quite small, these little pieces of foam. Each time I stick one of the animals on, I just give the ring a little bit of a jiggle just to make sure that it's not getting stuck. I'm just going to skip past the rest of this. You don't really want to watch me stick all of these down. With the main part of the card done now, I'm going to stamp a sentiment on the front of the card, and I'm using the Sending You Oceans of Love. And I'm going to actually use my stamparatus to stamp this verse twice so that I can cut it and use it in separate pieces, as it's a little bit big for where I want to put it, so I'm just going to cut the words separately. This is what I really like about the stamparatus, is I can stamp multiple images really quickly and get them nice and straight. Now I'm just using a small paper trimmer to cut it down to the size that I need. Sorry, I've cut myself off from the camera a little bit here, but I've positioned the sentiment in the corner, and I just want to put a couple of the leftover shells that I've got cut out and have them just kind of sticking out on the corner for a little bit of decorative pieces there. And I'm going to use the press and seal again to hold it all together. So I lay out everything that I want and then get the press and seal, which I'm reusing from when I used it earlier. It's still quite sticky, so I'm using it again. And I press it over the top once I've got my pieces laid out, and that holds everything into position, because there's nothing worse than playing around and getting everything where you want it, and then you've got to move it to then put glue on it. So the press and seal holds it all into place, so then you can flip it over, put your glue on, and then you can turn it back over, place it down, and peel that press and seal off. I initially had a little bit of trouble getting this press and seal in Australia, but I believe it's quite accessible online. It's more common over in America, I think, so you get it really easy over there. It doesn't it's not super sticky, so when you peel it back off your paper, it never tears. If you just peel it very carefully and slowly, you shouldn't have any problems getting it off. That is pretty much the card done now. You can add some glitter to it, or I've actually got some dimensional gloss here that I'm going to use to add to just a few of the little pieces for a little bit of extra shine, and then I sprinkled a little bit of glitter into that gloss while it was still a little bit wet for just a little bit of shimmer. So there we have the finished product, this really cute mermaid card with a rotating ring of turtles and fish. Now, I really do hope that you give this card a go. It wasn't anywhere near as difficult to make as I thought it was going to be. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope you have a lovely day.